Hello and welcome to today's Hindu newspaper analysis of the editorial section of the Delhi edition. Okay, let's get started from the first articles. Fragmenting world order. Okay, United Nations. What is gist of this article? The impact of the Ukraine war on global interconnectedness is a cause for worry in the post-Cold War post-World War order. What is gist and crux of this article? Nearly three weeks into the Russian war on Ukraine, the cost to India is still to be counted. While some are focusing on how India's refusal to criticize Russia's actions and the string of our tensions at the United Nations would affect its relations with the West and its Quad partners. How many countries in Quad? These are United States of America, Australia, Japan and India. Others are watching the economic cost that the unprecedented sanctions of the US and the European Union will have on Indian trade, energy and defense purchases. However, the outcome that should worry New Delhi and other like-minded countries, the most apart from the devastating consequences for the Ukrainian nations, is the impact the Ukraine crisis is having on the global world order, which is fragmenting in every respect of global interconnectedness in terms of international cooperation, security, military, huge, economic order and even cultural ties also. The UN and the Security Council. What is the impact of the UN and Security Council? To begin with, Prarambh mein, the global order has broken down and events in Ukraine have exposed the United Nations and the Security Council for their complete ineffectiveness. Russia's actions in Ukraine may in terms of refusing to seek an international mandate seem too different from the war by the United Nations in Iraq in 2003. Israeli bombing of Lebanon, most important article. Israel's bombing of Lebanon in 2006 and the Saudi coalition attacks of Yemen in 2015. But Ukraine is in fact a bigger blow to the post-Cold War, post-World War order than any other. The direct missile strikes and bombing of Ukrainian cities every day, exacting both military and civilian casualties, and the creation of millions of refugees run counter to every line of the UN Charter Preamble, that is to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, to practice tolerance and live together in peace with one another as good neighbors, as well as Article 1 and 2 of the purposes and principles of the United Nations. Charter 1. The fact that Russian President Vladimir Putin broadcast his decision to launch military operation on Ukraine at the same time the Russian envoy to the United Nations was presiding over a UN Security Council discussion on the Ukrainian crisis. It speaks volumes for the respect of the P5 member felt for the proceedings. A vote of the International Commons or the UN General Assembly, also known as UNGA, that decreed Moscow's actions was brushed off in a way that was even easier than when the US did when it lost the UNGA vote in 2017 over its decision to move the US Embassy to Jerusalem. Meanwhile, in their responses, other P5 members such as the United States, United Kingdoms and France did not seek to strengthen the global order, either imposing sanctions unilaterally rather than attempting to bring them to the UN. Clearly, Russia would have vetoed any punitive measures, but that should not have stopped the attempt. Nor the surge in weapons transferred to Ukraine a vote of confidence in the UN power to effect a truce. wider nuclear safeguards. The next point is Russian recklessness with regard to nuclear safety in a country that has suffered the worst impact of poor safety and planning following the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. Chernobyl is in Ukraine, when Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, which is a challenge to the global nuclear order. Russian military is moved to target areas under Chernobyl and sailing building near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, also Europe's largest plant. So an alarming non-challenge towards safeguard in place over several decades. After the US detonation of atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 led to the establishment of the International Atomic Energy Agency in 1956. The world must also consider the cost to the nuclear non-proliferation regime credibility. Ukraine and Libya that willingly gave up nuclear programs have been invaded, while regimes such as Iran and Northern Korea can defy the global order because they have held on their nuclear deterrents. There are also the covenants agreed upon during the global war on terrorism, which have been degraded with the use of non-state actors in the Ukrainian crisis. For years, pro-Russia and armed military operated in the Donbas region, challenging to the weight of the government in Kyiv. Kyiv is the capital of the Ukraine, you know already. With the arrival of Russian troops, the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has invited foreign fighters who are volunteering to support his forces to the country. This seeks to mirror the international brigades in the Spanish Civil War of 1930s, comprising foreign volunteers from about 50 countries against force of Spanish military ruler Francisco. However, the role of foreign fighters has taken on a more sincere meaning after 2011 and Al-Qaeda when the Western recruits joined the Islamic State to fight Syrian President Bashar al-Assad forces. British Foreign Secretary Liz Truss recent statement that she would absolutely support. Britain जरूर support करेगा. British veterans and volunteers joining the Ukrainian war against Russia has since been reversed by the British Foreign Office, and it is to hoped that other countries around the world, including India, make firm efforts towards the preventing such non-state actors from joining a foreign war. Economic actions by the US, the UK and the European Union also point to a fragmentation of the global financial order. While analysts have pointed out that the sanctions announced so far do not include some of Russia's biggest banks, such as Share Bank of Gaza, Gazprom Bank and energy agencies, in order to avoid the disruption of oil and gas from Russia. The intent to cut Russia out of all monetary and financial systems remains, from the eviction of Russia from SWIFT payments to the cancellation of MasterCard Visa, American Express and PayPal, to the sanctioning of specific Russian business and oligarchies and pressure on Western business. McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, etc. operating in Russia to shut down the arbitrary unilateral nature of Western sanctions rub against the international financial order set up under the World Trade Organization that replaced the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, or also known as GATT. The obvious fallout of this economic and cancel culture will without doubt to be a reaction, a pushback from Russia and an exploration of alternative trading arrangements with countries such as China, Iran and much of the Eastern Hemisphere. which continued to trade with Moscow for the S-400 missile defense deal. Okay, defense deal. For example, New Delhi and used a rupee ruble mechanism and banks that were immunized from the US. CAATSA sections. Also CAATSA, what is full form of CAATSA? Countering America's adversaries through Sanctions Act. For advance payments, Russian banks will now use the Chinese Union Pay for online transaction gradually. The word, may be seen a non-dollar system emerge with the, would run banking, fintech and credit system separately from the dollar word. From the dollar word. From the dollar word. Isolation by the culture. Finally, there is the stern objective to isolate Russia socially, culturally, and that rails against the global liberal order. While several governments, including the US, the UK and Germany, have persistently said that their quarrel is not with Russian citizens, but with their leadership, it is clear that most of their actions will hurt the average Russian citizens. बिल्कुल ठीक है. The EU ban off all Russian owned, Russian control or Russian registered, re-registered plans from EU airspace, and Aeroflot's cancellation of international routes will ensure that travel to and from Russia is severely curtailed. Some of this isolation of citizens, will work, to the favor of an increasingly authoritarian Kremlin. Authoritarian Kremlin. To the banning of Russia's channels in Europe and its allies has been to use the Western media ban as a pretext to ban opposition-friendly Russian channels, as well as the isolation extend to art and music. Music in the past 2 weeks, the Munich, Philharmonic fired its chief conductor, and New York, Metropolitan Opera left a Russian soprano because of they would not criticize the war. The Bolshoi Ballet's performance in London and Madrid were similarly cancelled. The perils of this comprehensive boycott of Russia. The perils of this comprehensive boycott of Russia are not without historical precedent. Speaking to his parliament this week, Mr. Zelensky invoked British Prime Minister, Mr. Churchill, fight to the end speech delivered at the House of the Commons in 1942 to speak about Ukrainians' commitment to fight Russia. European onlookers would do well to also remember Churchill's other famous speech, The Science of Peace, delivered in the United States in 1946, when he first referred to the Iron Curtain coming down between Soviet Russia and Western Europe. The safety of the world requires a new unity in Europe, from which no nation, should be permanently outcast. Churchill had warned, although his words went in vain and the world suffered the consequences of the Cold War for the next 4 decades. New Delhi need to ponder the events over the past 2 weeks set in motion by Russia's declaration of war on Ukraine have no doubt reversed many of the ideas of 1945 and 1990s, fragmented the international order established with the UN, ushering in an area of deglobalization and bringing down another, Iron Curtain. India's abstemious responses against desire not to be critical of any of the actions taken by the big powers might keep Indians, safe in the short term. But in the long term, it is only those nations that move proactively to uphold, strengthen and reinvent the global order that will make the world a safer place. Even as this war, okay, that promises few winners rages on. The war's cold fact and what India need to be gleaned. There is no finer teacher of war than war, said Mao at the Ukraine-Russia war near the end of the 3 weeks. It is time one takes stock of India's position in the real world of geopolitics. In the real world, power talks as Greek historian, okay, Thucydides wrote in the 5th century before Christ era, right as the word goes, is only in question between equals in power. While the strong do what they can and the weak suffer, okay, what they must, the dogged resistance of Ukraine notwithstanding, powers has spoken through. Russian actions with Russian President Vladimir Putin demanding that all Russian demands, okay, be met, including a call to surrender. This leads to the two fundamental deductions at the micro level. These are the two fundamental deductions at the micro level. Ukraine is the elan. First, a nation's vital interest can be protected only by that nation itself. For all the pompous, okay, statements coming from the West, promises of arms supply being made and intelligence inputs that must be getting transmitted, the fact is that it is Ukrainians alone who are facing the brunt of the Russian military fight. It has always been, okay, conjectured whether the United States would come to the aid of a North Atlantic Treaty Organization in Europe, following a Russian advance and risk its own cities in turn. The answer is starkly visible. Good intentions and media statements have, okay, never stopped a bullet, and surely there would be soul searching that is ongoing in the minds of elites such as Japan, South Korea, Taiwan too. As the fallacy of a friend coming to fight with you and for you has been exposed yet again, the Indian parallel. India's experience has been similar. भारत का भी अनुभव कुछ इसी प्रकार का है. India's experience has been similar during the 1962 India-China war. Moscow had no time for New Delhi. In fact, it sided with the Beijing. And the Americans offered moral and logistic support. समझ गए? Despite New Delhi's request for military help. The 1965 war was one of the redemption as India rearmed itself in big way, a drive that continued and gave us the outright victory in 1971. Then in 1974, it is to the credit of the Indian leadership for demonstrating India's specific capability through a peaceful nuclear expulsion and the leadership in 1998. For going overtly nuclear to the common man, this constitutes power. But between two nuclear capable nations, an atomic weapon is a deterrent in the nuclear realm and not a determinant of conventional power. As India faces two nuclear adversaries, the reality of India having lagged in true indigenous conventional capability must be accepted. This leads to the second deduction. For a nation to have strategic autonomy in matters of national security, self-sufficiency in defense, research and development and manufacturing is an capable imperative. This would afford the required deterrence to prevent war and to prosecute it if deterrence fails. The sessions at the United Nations on Ukraine where India's stand saw New Delhi as a tightrope walker as it is heavily dependent on Russia and the US for political reasons as well as for arms. Arms from the West too. After the Cold War ended, India diversified its purchases to dilute its dependence on Russia for arms. While the narrative has been on the MiGs, Antonovas, Sukhoi, S-400, S-400 T-90 tanks, Grand Rocket launchers, Kilo class submarines. Okay. One overlooks the fact that India has become heavily dependent on the West too for a multitude of frontline armament system. For example, the heavy lift transport fleet of the Indian Air Force relies heavily on the American C-17 and C-130, C-13OG Super Hercules aircraft, while the helicopter fleet has the Chinook and Apache attack helicopters. Similarly, the Indian Navy has the Boeing P-8I long-range aircraft for maritime surveillance and is acquiring MH-60 helicopter for anti-submarine warfare and Sea Guardian drones for reconnaissance. The Indian Army's GM777 artillery guns are from the West. The IAF Rafale and Mirage fighters from France, Jaguars from Britain, and a multitude of drones from Israel. Even the basic infantry rifle is being reported, and India has signed 3 fundamental agreements with the US, and the word of the Democrats through the countering America's adversaries through Sanctions Act CAATSA is ever present. The list is very long and encompasses both camps as it is bare. Or there are doubts now why the political regions be abstained in the UN Security Council to vote. Okay, so this is sufficient from here. Let's move to another article. Anti-outsider sentiments intensifies, but does not affect outcome. ये क्या है? न्यू डील, ईरान डील है, ज्यादा खास इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है. द फेल्ड टू ट्राई किया, लास्ट से पहुंचो सिर्फ. टेस्ट एंड कॉन्टेक्स्ट एक आर्टिकल देख लेते हैं. द सर्ज इन ऑयल एंड नेचुरल गैस प्राइसेस. व्हाई डिड इंटरनेशनल ऑयल प्राइसेस surged to a 14-year high last week? What will the immediate effect of US sanctions on the Russia's energy exports? What is the story so far? On March 8th, the President Joe Biden announced that the US was banning the import of Russian oil, liquefied natural gas and coal to the country. A move aimed at depriving Russia of the economic resources needed to continue its war in the Ukraine. In the run-up to the US announcement, international oil prices surged to a 14-year high on March 7, with the Brent crude futures hitting $139.13 intraday. However, following the US decision, oil prices aid and where it ended as last week, $112.67 a barrel, which was 4.8 lower than the preceding last week. Week closure. Why did the US target Russia's energy exports? Why? Russia is the world third largest oil producer. Trailing only Saudi Arabia and the United States. In January 2022, Russia's total oil production was 11.3 million barrels per day, of which 10 MB/day was crude oil, according to the Paris-based Intergovernmental International Energy Agency, also known as IEA. By comparison, total oil production by the US in January was 17.6, while Saudi Arabia produced 12. In terms of exports to the global markets. However, Russia is the world's largest exporter of crude and oil produces products having shipped 7.8 December 2021 and the second largest supplier of the crude to the world, with only Saudi Arabia exporting more crude than it. Russia is also a major exporter of natural gas and supplied almost a third of 32 of the gas consumed in Europe and the UK in 2021. The revenue it made from the sales of oil and gas in 2021 accounted for 36% of Russia's total revenue of 25.9 trillion ruble. Ruble is the currency of the Russia. Okay. The energy exports these figures clearly show the significance of oil and gas exports to Moscow and the potentially impact any move to completely stop global purchase of these commodities from the country could have no on Russia's economy. What impact could Washington's move have on Russia's and global crude prices? In a fact sheet accompanying the announcement, President Joe Biden administration stated that in 2021, the US has imported almost 7 lakh barrels per day of crude oil and refined petroleum products from Russia. समझ गए? Given that Russia exported substantially more than 7 million barrels per day of the crude oil and products last year, the US ban would impact about 1/10 of the Russia's oil exports, and even as it acknowledges that not all of its allies and partners around the world were currently in a position to join its import ban, Washington, however, said the longer-term goal was to reduce all collective dependence on Russia. What it is ahead? Not most important, a closer look at the main portable air defense system. Securitization, a long-drawn phenomena that is not restricted to caste hierarchy but also encompasses a wider social and cultural process. Okay. So this concludes for the Hindu newspaper today. So thanks for watching.